Life has a very strange way of, my dear friends. Every single day, life hands us a new page, some filled with laughter, some with confusion, and some with silence. But if you look closely, beyond the noise of routine, beyond the rush of wanting more, you'll realize that even the smallest moment is trying to guide you towards something deeper. When you're stuck in traffic, life is teaching patience. When someone misunderstands you, life is teaching compassion. When plans fail, life is whispering, there's another path meant for you. When you sit in silence, that's not emptiness, that's reflection. The greatest mistake we make is thinking that lessons only come from success or achievements. But my friends, lessons come dressed as disappointments, delays, and even heartbreaks. The wise don't just experience life, they learn from it. So today, let's explore together this journey called Everything is a Lesson. Let's talk about what it truly means to listen to life through noise, through silence, through progress, and even through pain. Because once you start learning from everything, you stop complaining about anything. My friends, life is not always quiet, organized, or peaceful. Sometimes it is loud, it is noisy. It's filled with voices, opinions, distractions, and endless responsibilities pulling us in every direction. But have you ever paused to think that maybe, even in that noise, there is something to learn? We often seek silence as the only path to peace. But what if peace could also be found in the middle of chaos? What if the noise itself was a teacher, showing us how to listen deeply, not just to the world around us, but to the voice within us? You see, every morning when we wake up, the world begins to demand our attention. Phone notifications, conversations, deadlines, traffic, and 1,000 tiny things that fill our mental space. We complain about how noisy life has become, but perhaps that very noise is testing our ability to stay centered. It's like standing in the middle of a busy marketplace. If you can find peace there, you can find it anywhere. The true test of calmness is not when everything is still, but when everything is moving, yet you remain unmoved. I remember once meeting a young student who told me, "Sir, I can't meditate. My home is too noisy. My mind doesn't stop." I smiled and said, "Maybe meditation for you right now is not about silence, but about learning to be calm in noise." He looked confused, but I continued, "When you can focus even with people talking around you, when you can breathe peacefully even when life is rushing, that is the real strength. Life doesn't always give us perfect conditions to grow. It gives us challenges so we can learn to adapt. The noise isn't the obstacle, the noise is the training ground." Think about the ocean. On the surface, it's loud, restless, and constantly moving, but deep within, it's still and undisturbed. That's how we must learn to be. The noise on the surface of our lives, the arguments, the traffic, the workload, will always be there. But our peace lies deeper, where we can connect with the divine stillness that no external sound can disturb. It's not about escaping the noise, it's about diving beneath it. In daily life, we often get irritated by the smallest interruptions. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and we lose our calm. A colleague's opinion clashes with ours, and we carry that irritation all day. The lesson here is not about controlling others, it's about controlling our response. Every noisy situation is life's way of showing us how much inner control we truly have. Can we remain kind when provoked? Can we remain focused when distracted? Can we smile when things don't go our way? If yes, then we have learned from the noise. There's a story I once heard of a monk who meditated near a busy marketplace. Every day, Vendors shouted, children cried, and carts rolled by, yet he sat still. One man asked him, "How do you meditate with so much disturbance around you?" The monk smiled and said, "When I first came here, the market disturbed me, but slowly I learned that the noise was not around me, it was within me. When that inner noise stopped, even the market sounded like music." That's the beauty of perspective. The same sound that irritates one person can inspire another. It all depends on what we're listening for. In your life too, there are moments that feel overwhelming. Too many responsibilities, too many opinions, too much happening at once. But maybe this is where life is training you to grow stronger, to rise above the surface noise and hear the rhythm of your own purpose. The world outside may never quiet down, but the world within can. And that inner world becomes powerful when it stops reacting to every sound and starts observing it. Even nature teaches this lesson beautifully. Have you noticed how a storm shakes the trees, but their roots remain grounded? That's what life wants from us, to stay rooted in our values, even when the winds of noise and confusion blow hard. Don't run away from noisy situations, face them with awareness. When you do, you'll realize that the noise isn't here to break you, it's here to awaken you. Sometimes, the noise is also an alarm telling us to pay attention. The noise of stress might be saying, "Slow down." The noise of conflict might be saying, "Communicate better." The noise of constant comparison might be saying, "Return to yourself." If we listen with patience, the noise can reveal what silence cannot. Because silence teaches us to feel peace, but noise teaches us to protect it. Teaching us, sometimes it whispers, sometimes it shouts, and sometimes it breaks us just enough to make us listen. We often keep asking, "Why did this happen to me?" But the wiser question is, what is this trying to teach me? Because in the grand classroom of life, nothing ever goes wasted. Everything is a lesson. Silence is one of life's most misunderstood gifts. Many people see silence as emptiness, as a gap between moments, something awkward or even lonely. But in truth, silence is not a pause, it is a practice. It is the space where your thoughts settle, where your emotions find their balance, and where your connection with the divine deepens. Silence doesn't mean the absence of sound. It means the presence of awareness. In a world that constantly demands our attention, silence is not just an escape, it is an act of courage. Every day we are surrounded by noise, the hum of traffic, the endless scroll of social media, the chatter of opinions, and the constant need to respond. Our minds have become like crowded marketplaces, always busy, always restless. We seek peace, but we keep looking for it in sound, in movement, in company. Yet real peace is born in stillness. When you sit quietly, when you stop trying to fill every moment with something, that's when you begin to meet yourself. There's a beautiful truth. Silence doesn't shout, but it reveals. It reveals who you really are when there's no one else to impress. It reveals what you truly feel when no one is watching. And it reveals what you need to heal when you stop pretending that everything is fine. Silence holds up a mirror to your soul, and that can be uncomfortable because it shows you the truth. But only through that truth can you grow. Imagine waking up one morning and instead of rushing to your phone, you just sit quietly for a few minutes. You notice the sound of your breath, the softness of light entering your room, the calm that exists before the world wakes up. In that moment, there is no competition, no expectation, no pressure. There's just you, pure, present, alive. That is the power of silence. It brings you back to the now, the only place where peace truly exists. We often think that silence is something we find only in temples or mountains or during meditation. But silence can exist in the middle of your day if you invite it. When you stop reacting to every little thing, when you pause before speaking, when you listen more than you respond, that is silence in practice. It's not about being quiet, it's about being mindful. It's the art of allowing life to speak to you rather than always speaking to life. I remember a man once told me, "I get uncomfortable when it's too quiet. It feels empty." I smiled and said, "Maybe it feels empty because you haven't yet filled it with awareness." Silence is not the absence of life, it is the fullness of presence. The more you practice it, the more you begin to realize that silence is not lonely, it's sacred. It's where ideas are born, where emotions heal, where faith strengthens. It's where the noise of the world fades and the voice of God can finally be heard. In silence, we start to understand that not every situation needs a reaction, not every opinion needs to be argued, and not every feeling needs to be explained. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing and simply observe, because in observation, wisdom grows. In silence, patience deepens. And in that stillness, your inner world becomes clearer. Think about how nature practices silence. The trees don't speak, yet they teach endurance. The ocean doesn't talk, yet it teaches rhythm. The mountains don't argue, yet they teach stability. The stars don't shout, yet they light up the entire night sky. There is a lesson in that true strength doesn't always make noise. True power moves quietly. When you practice silence, you begin to mirror that same strength. Even in relationships, silence has power. Sometimes, the best response to anger is quiet understanding. Sometimes, love is shown not through words, but through presence. When someone is hurting, they don't always need advice. They need the silent comfort of knowing that you're there. Silence can heal what words cannot. It can bridge distances that arguments create. It is not passive, it is deeply active because it speaks through energy, not sound. In silence, you begin to realize how much energy we waste trying to prove, to defend, to explain. When you let silence be your guide, you no longer need to convince the world. Your peace becomes your proof. You understand that every opinion about you doesn't need your attention, and every problem doesn't need your panic. Silence teaches you to respond from strength, not from noise. There is also a divine connection hidden in silence. When you quiet the mind, the heart begins to speak. When you stop talking to the world, you start listening to God. You begin to feel that gentle guidance that was always there but drowned under your thoughts. That's why great thinkers, saints, and artists often retreat into silence, because that's where inspiration lives. So make silence a daily practice. Take small pauses throughout your day. When things get overwhelming, don't rush to fix everything. Just sit for a moment. Breathe. Observe. Trust that sometimes doing nothing is the most powerful thing you can do, because in that stillness, clarity arrives. Silence won't change your world immediately, but it will change how you see it. And when your perception changes, everything changes. My friends, silence is not a break from life. It is where life begins to make sense. It is where you remember that peace was never lost. It was only buried under noise. Practice silence not to escape the world, but to return to yourself. Because once you taste the peace of true silence, even the loudest day can't disturb your inner harmony. The more you embrace silence, the more you realize that it's not emptiness, it's fullness beyond measure. It's the divine space where everything noisy becomes meaningful, and everything confusing becomes clear. Failure is something we all try to run from, hide from, or disguise. We live in a world that celebrates success loudly, but whispers about failure quietly, as if it's a shame to fall short. But my friends, what if I told you that failure is not the opposite of success? It is a part of it. Every failure carries a message, every mistake carries a direction, and every disappointment carries a lesson. The problem is not that we fail, the problem is that we stop listening to what failure is trying to tell us. Failure, when understood correctly, is simply feedback from life, a divine redirection showing us a better way to grow. Think about a baby learning to walk. It falls, it stumbles, it cries, and yet it keeps trying. No one scolds the child for falling because we understand that falling is part of walking. But as adults, the moment we fail at something, a job, a relationship, a dream, we label ourselves as broken. We forget that failure is not the end of the road. It's a bend in the road that teaches us to turn better next time. If we could approach our own setbacks with the same innocence as a child learning to walk, we would realize that each fall is simply proof that we are still trying. I once met a young man who told me that he had started 3 businesses, and all 3 failed. He looked defeated. I asked him, "What did you learn from those experiences?" He said, "I learned what not to do." I smiled and said, "Then you didn't fail, you graduated." Because truly, every failure is a form of education. We learn more from our failures than we ever do from our successes. Success gives us confidence, but failure gives us character. Success teaches us how to move forward, but failure teaches us why we should. It strengthens our humility, patience, and resilience, qualities that success alone can never build. In life, the greatest achievers are not those who never failed, but those who never gave up after failing. Thomas Edison once said, "I have not failed. I've just found $10 ways that won't work." That's the mindset of someone who understands that failure is feedback. When something doesn't go our way, it's life's gentle nudge saying, "There's another way. Try again." But often, instead of listening, we start doubting our worth. We confuse the result with our identity. Just because you failed at something doesn't mean you are a failure. The event may fail, but the person can always rise. Every successful person you admire today has a history of setbacks behind their glory. The truth is, life never wastes a failure. Every rejection, every closed door, every unexpected twist is preparing you for something you can't yet see. Maybe that relationship didn't work because you needed to find yourself first. Maybe that opportunity didn't last because a better one is waiting. Maybe that dream took longer because life needed to strengthen you before blessing you. You see, failure doesn't destroy you, it designs you. It shapes you into the person capable of holding the success you once prayed for. Imagine a sculptor carving a statue out of stone. Each strike of the chisel seems harsh, each piece that falls away looks like loss. But in reality, those strikes are revealing the beauty within. In the same way, failure is the sculptor's chisel in our lives. It removes our arrogance, impatience, and illusions, leaving behind clarity, wisdom, and strength. If you trust the process, you'll realize that what felt like destruction was actually creation in disguise. In our daily life, failure shows up in small ways too. You cook a meal and it doesn't taste right. You plan your day, but it doesn't go as expected. You speak your heart and someone misunderstands. Each of these moments can either make you bitter or better. The difference lies in perspective. When you stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, What is this teaching me? Your whole experience of failure transforms. Suddenly, every situation becomes useful. Every setback becomes sacred, and every disappointment becomes divine guidance. There's something powerful about people who fail gracefully. They don't hide their mistakes, they honor them as stepping stones. They understand that failure doesn't mean you're unworthy,